Okay. 1 second. Is it streaming? Hopefully it is. All right, I think we're streaming, and if not, I apologize. We should be streaming. All right. So we are going to start our Web 101 today, and our topic today is internet safety or web safety, and or sorry, web security. Can't talk today. And our presenter is going to be Dave Willis. I've known Dave. We've just figured it out a little over 20 years. And he is the, what is your title with Pongos?
Vice President of Technology.
Yeah, we get to make up our own title. So he's the VP of Technology, and he is our go-to person when it comes to setting up a web server, migrating our clients from one server to another, and pretty much all things security. He makes sure that our clients, both small business and large enterprises, are staying free from hacks on the websites. And if they do get hacked, then he's helping to fix it. So, Dave, you want to give yourself a little bit more of an intro and get started?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dave. I've been working on the internet pretty much since I've known Chrissy, which is about 96. I've worked for internet companies in tech support, in network operations, and systems administration. I've run some really big stuff, like 5 web nodes, 4 database nodes, multiple load balancers, all that kind of thing. I've run small things, just typical web hosting you might get from GoDaddy or whatever, those kind of things. I run my own servers. I run the Pongos servers. And I feel like I've got a pretty good record so far as hacking goes. The things where I've had complete control of have not been hacked. The things that I've been dependent on someone else have been hacked. And we've had some interesting times cleaning some stuff up, but generally I don't clean it. I recommend somebody else cleans it. Security is the company that I typically have for that. So anyway, today's presentation is Safely Swimming with Sharks, Web Security 101. I've got my Twitter handle on there. I don't do a lot of tweeting, but you can follow me if you want to. And our website is pongos.com. Most of you should already be aware. I'm going to be juggling 2 screens with slides so I can keep up with what the next slide is. So if I forget to change a slide and I'm talking, it's because I'm looking at the wrong screen. So if you let me know. Anyway, so start off with, get it together. What is security? Security, a lot of people think this is something that you just set up and then your web server is secure. But security is an ever-moving target. It's always changing. The landscape of what is available to target a web server, they're discovering new things all the time. The hackers are working as hard as the developers to, you want to make a secure thing. They're working to find every little thing that you've messed up, every tiny crack that they can get into. And so you install your stuff, you get it all set up, you're pretty confident it's secure. And then the next day, there's an update released, security patch for your web server. Now that has to be installed, and if it's not installed, that's one opening. It's like leaving your back door open, even though you've got 6 padlocks on the front. It's not going to help you if they get around to that back door. So like I said, security is an ever-moving target. Things are always changing. You have to keep up with what's going on. That's why we generally recommend that I do that for you or someone else does that for you, because it's a lot to keep up with. It's a mindset. You have to be mindful of security. It's a behavior, the way you handle yourself. You can do things that are either going to make you secure or make you insecure. It's kind of like I tell the boys in football, you're either getting better every day or you're falling behind. You're never standing still with security either. You're always, you may feel like you're pretty secure, but if you're not changing and adapting with things that are coming out and making sure everything's patched and updated, or you're doing things like writing your password down and sliding it under your keyboard, that's a behavior that's not secure. Lifestyle, same thing. It's your behavior dictates your lifestyle. If you're behaving in insecure ways and you're loose with your data, leaving credit cards laying around or that sort of thing, you're contributing to an insecure lifestyle, which contributes to you being hacked. So how do they get in, the sharks? They get in through social engineering or phishing, brute force and direct dictionary login attacks, credential stuffing, password reuse, outdated software, zero-day vulnerability. We're going to talk about all these things. Free Wi-Fi is one that most people don't think about. Keyloggers everyone's heard of, but nobody really, I mean, not nobody, but a lot of people don't really understand what they are and how they get on your machine. USB flash drives and SD cards. That's another one that a lot of people don't think about, and probably the one that a lot of people use, but it never occurs to them they could be putting themselves in danger, is public USB charging stations. So there's a lot of different ways, and these aren't even all of them. There's other ways as well. I'm sure I've left some stuff out. I'm sure some of the security guys will be like, watch this and go, you forgot this. Well, can't get everything. We're doing the best I can. And like I said, the security is ever changing. So, so anyway, social engineering, phishing. Here's your aquarium Bob. He comes up to you from nowhere, right? You're at the aquarium, you're hanging out, you're looking at the fish and stuff, and then Bob comes up. Hi there, I'm Bob from the aquarium gift shop. There was a small issue with your purchase earlier. If you can help me verify your name and credit card information, I will be happy to get this issue quickly resolved for you. He's even got a name tag, Aquarium Bob. You know, I mean, right? You can't get more legit than that. But the things that he's done is he's come to you and he's identified himself. I'm someone with authority. There was a small issue with your purchase. He's told you there's a problem that needs to be resolved. Now, Bob can see you. He saw you make some purchase in the aquarium gift shop. He doesn't necessarily know what you did. He doesn't need to know. All he knows is you made a purchase. He saw you swipe a credit card. So he approaches you, tells you there was an issue with the purchase earlier, and if you can help him verify your name and credit card information, he's requesting now your name and credit card information, he'll be happy to get the issue resolved for you. Now, obviously, you know, aquarium, they're not going to come to you dressed up like a shark with a misspelled name tag. It's not going to be that obvious. But this is basically the way they work. For example, I got on Thanksgiving, I got a text. Actually, my wife got a text on her phone from our bank, and it said, your card was declined at a Walmart Supercenter for a purchase of about $729. And it used that kind of language. It wasn't specific about where. It just said a Walmart Supercenter. And I think they told me it was in Ohio. And they said, if this wasn't you, or if this was you, respond with yes in all caps. If it wasn't, respond no. And the first thing I do is respond no. And I'm thinking, you know, okay, if it's not legit, you know, whatever. If it is legit, I want my bank to know that that wasn't me. Absolutely, don't let that purchase go through, right? So we do the, I hit no, and it comes back. In fact, I answered no in lowercase first, and then I responded again in all caps, just to be sure that I hit their trigger. I did the all caps no, and it says, we see that wasn't you. We're generating a call to you now. So then they call, and I'm talking to the guy for a minute. He identifies himself the same kind of way. Bob from the aquarium gift shop, right? It's Michael Collins from the bank. And he lets me know that, he asked me is this Dave? You know, and I said, yeah, this is Dave. And he says, so yeah, your card was declined. And if you, we need to identify you before we can go any further. So we want to use my security questions that I used on their website, which seems totally valid. If I called him, it would be completely valid, but he called me. And because he called me, that sets off all kinds of alarm bells for me. And so I talked to him, and I eventually thought, you know, at first I gave him the incorrect username accidentally, which was kind of lucky for me, because if I hadn't given him the wrong one, I'd have gave him access to my bank account, because I did answer one of the security questions before I remembered that he called me, not I called him. And I told him I'm going to call the bank and verify this instead. So I ended the phone call, and then I called the bank and verified that no, nothing had happened. Nobody from the bank had tried to contact me, and it was just somebody trying to get me to give them information that will let them access my account. It was probably the most scary thing security-wise, because for me, I mean, a lot of people are susceptible to this. So, you know, you get something from that and it looks legit, it seems legit, and you go through with it. But I work in security, and so I'm more, if you can get me doing that, you can really get anybody, and they nearly did get me. So, you know, always be wary of that sort of thing. We'll talk more about how to avoid these sorts of things as we get forward. Another thing they do is they, oops, where we at? All right, credential stuffing and password reuse. Breached email addresses and username password combinations are sold cheap on the dark web, and I mean cheap, like $10. You can get an account with credit card information that's known to be valid, social security numbers, addresses, all the information you need to buy a house you can get for around $10-15 maybe, and that's not maybe even just one account. Sometimes you can get those accounts, you can get a bundle of like 5 or 6 of them, and they don't sell these things to fool people. They want that information to be valid, because if it's valid, then that person will come back and buy more stuff. Their reputation on the dark web is important to them, so they don't sell like, I mean, I could make a bunch of stuff up and go sell it on the dark web, but they're gonna find out that I'm not honest with my with my information I'm giving them to allow them to be dishonest. And then, you know, my reputation is destroyed on the dark web. No one will buy anything from me, and none of the criminals will trust me ever again. So they're very, you know, they make sure this information is valid. And so you're buying valid stuff. You could literally buy a house with this information. In the first 6 months of 2019, there were over 4,000 breaches, and that resulted in 4.1 billion sets of credentials published to the internet. 4.1 billion is a lot when you consider the population of the United States is only like 300 million people. So these are things that are if once your information's out there, it can be used. Brute force dictionary login attacks. These are attacks where, as you see, the shark is bashing his nose into the side of the aquarium. These are attacks where the attacker attempts to guess the password using software that generates a large number of consecutive guesses and automatically submits till one works. So think about like a random number generator kind of thing. It generates these passwords and just rapid fire, bam, 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 log in, and either gets in or doesn't get in. Most of the times they don't get in. What they usually do is bring the server down, because they're using up resources processing all these password attempts. But if they do get in using brute force, then they've got access to whichever account they did get in. Sometimes those are admin accounts. Sometimes they're just user accounts that don't have any permissions. But in some cases, you can escalate those privileges, so you get a user that doesn't have permission, like an admin, but you can, through software exploits that are available in some of this, like say WordPress, for example, if you got in as a subscriber and they had vulnerable software on there, you could escalate your account to an admin account, and then you can do whatever you want. They also use dictionary attacks. The dictionary attack is the ones that they're getting where the 4.1 billion sets of credentials that are published to the internet, they get those, and then they use these known passwords that are popular, and they'll try to use those to log into your account, or they'll log in with the credential stuffing is using, say you get dave@pongos.com, and then you have a password that I've used in the past, and so you go try something somewhere like Netflix or whatever, and boom, look, now you've got in on my account. So that's how the dictionary attacks work. Now, Disney Plus had a breach within a few days of the November 12th Disney launch. They were all done through the keyword stuffing, and so that's how they got them. They had usernames and passwords that they'd use for other things. and those accounts had been breached, and they were able to use those to log into Disney Plus within days of the launch. People use that same login information, and now you've got free account. And these accounts are, people log in, they set up their Disney Plus account, they pay for it for 3 years, and then you log in with their credentials, change the email account, change the password, and now you've got that account for 3 years prepaid, and nobody can prove that you didn't have it. The names are on the accounts are still the same. Maybe these people can go through Disney and get it worked out. Maybe it takes them 3 months. You get the account for three months without having to pay. So that 100,000 people that happened to. So this is something that's happening a lot. A lot of people are vulnerable to it, and all you have to do is reuse your password in order to have this happen to you. Use this password one time on one thing, and then you create a new account and you forget, or you forget not to use that password again. You think, you know what, I'm just setting this up real quick. It's just a demo. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and use this password that I can remember, and then I'll come back later and change it when I can write it down or when I can do whatever I use to remember my passwords. And then you forget to come back and change it, and now you've got 2 accounts with that password, and then it's 3 and 4 and 5 and so on until eventually that's just your go-to password. And once they figure it out, it's your go-to password. It'll be their go-to password as well.
Scaring me.
What?
You're scaring me.
Right, that's the point of this. It's to be a little bit scary. So software unpatched and 0-day vulnerabilities. Security holes are being found and discreetly disclosed to software developers so it can be fixed and patched before it comes public. These things happen all the time. There's people they call white hat hackers that will take software. There's a company called Rips Tech, and they'll get the software and they scan it for security holes, and they find these things where so it's a minor thing that a programmer didn't do, like they didn't filter an input on a form. So like somebody could put something nasty in a form that makes it like a SQL injection or something. Well, they find those things and let the developer know. Then the developers fix it and release a patch. Then you install the patch, and now that vulnerability is gone. 0-day vulnerabilities are the ones that are found and either acted upon without discrete disclosure or are disclosed publicly before a patch can be written or implemented. There are people that are so-called white hat hackers it's more in the gray hat area and borderline black hat, as far as I'm concerned. Those guys shouldn't be trusted. They're scumbags. What they do is they come to you with a fix. They say, hey, this is a security problem. And this happened to WordPress a while back. These guys came to WordPress and said, hey, you need to fix this. This is a vulnerability. WordPress said, well, it's a vulnerability, but it's only going to affect certain very specific use cases, and the likelihood of it being exploited is so minimal, it's not a priority right now to fix, because they're going to need to take a couple things apart, I guess, to fix it, or I can't remember what the deal was, but they had to do some work that wasn't on their current track schedule. And it also, it was disruptive, and it wasn't a big deal. It's like saying, hey, the bank vault in your bank, if someone was in here and nobody was looking and all the cameras were off and all the tellers fell asleep, they could walk right into the door of the vault and do whatever they wanted. Obviously that situation is very, outside of like a Batman movie or something, very unlikely. So the point of fixing whatever that perceived vulnerability was, like right now, isn't necessary. So WordPress security made the call to hold off on that. These guys didn't like that, so they went ahead and released the vulnerability publicly in order to force WordPress's hand and make them fix this issue. So once it's public, now WordPress doesn't really have a choice. They've got to fix it, and it disrupted things. And it also because you made it public, now people that didn't know about the problem and can exploit it. And that's, to me, that's just not It's not okay. You really should be doing this. Let the developers know and let them fix it on their time or whatever, and let them evaluate whether or not it needs to be done. But sometimes they don't, and that's when a 0-day vulnerability comes up. It's one that's basically been available for 0 days, and it's there. Now everybody's using it or what. Those don't happen as often, but they do happen. So free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi networks, when you log in, if you log into Wi-Fi with a password, that password is the key. It's used to encrypt all the traffic and packets that you send. So if you send to your bank, you're already on HTTPS, hopefully. But if you're not, say you're just going to submit a web form and that web form is not secured, and now you're typing in all kinds of personal information, and the personal information is being submitted at the coffee shop where nobody has signed into anything. So it's not being encrypted at all. Anybody can intercept that traffic, because the traffic goes through all the computers can read it. So like if you're downloading something, it goes to the network and it's just on the network, and your computer knows that traffic's for it, so it picks that traffic up. Other computers can pick that traffic up too if they're using software that allows them to snoop those packets. So they can get those packets, they can open up those packets and see what the actual plain text data is. When that traffic's encrypted, usually through a password, then it makes it harder to decrypt it. Now, if you're at the coffee shop and there is a password, you're all using the same password, which means you're all using the same encryption key, which means you can all decrypt the data too. So there's that as well. So when you're on the free Wi-Fi, there's no privacy at all. On free Wi-Fi networks, like I said, about anybody can send traffic to any computer. You can all see each other. And so a compromised device may, if you've got a worm for sure, it will always be trying to spread to the other machines on its network. So it kind of probes those machines to see if it can install itself. So if you've got a vulnerable machine and you're plugged into the coffee shop Wi-Fi, you could be infected. Another thing that happens with free Wi-Fi is these guys will come and set up. I can name my hotspot anything I want. I can name it Walmart Guest. I can name it anything. So if you're at Walmart, for example, and your cell service is kind of garbage in there, like mine is at our Walmart, and I don't know why, but it is. And so sometimes you need to know something. You're trying to get some information, check an email or whatever, and so you connect to the Walmart Wi-Fi. Well, you can do that, and like I said, it does create some problems. If you do it if I was to set up a Walmart Wi-Fi hotspot for you, all the traffic that you're sending, your emails, your banking stuff, all of it goes through my access point. I can log all that information. I can sit there with my laptop in the parking lot with that and provide that access point for you and save any information I wanted. So you wouldn't know I'm doing it. You'd just be browsing the web as normal. And I'm sitting there happily enjoying your banking information, or whatever. Like I said, hopefully your banking is using HTTPS. If they're not, then you should switch back. So anyway, there's no privacy on public Wi-Fi, even if you're using a password. Keyloggers log each keystroke on your device and report that information to the attacker. They can be installed by employers. Some companies like to know what their employees are doing, and it's not malicious necessarily when your boss does it. The IT departments may take a screenshot periodically of your screen to make sure you're working. They used to do that at RCN sometimes when I worked there. I don't know what they were looking for, but they would see what you were doing. So they take a screenshot of your entire desktop, every window that was open. It would just take one like every half an hour or so, something like that, and it would save those. And then anytime they wanted to, they can go through and see what Dave is doing on their network. And if they don't like what I'm doing, then they can fire me. You know, so that's one way they get installed. Your parents, if you're a teenager like I have, may install some things that log some stuff too, keystrokes or other stuff. Family members may do it because it's fun, or they just, you know, maybe jealous wife or husband or something, or a friend that's had access to your gear may decide to do it too, because who's going to know? Malicious browser extensions can do this. You install a game into your Chrome browser, and that game becomes part of Chrome or whatever browser you're using. And now, if it's active and you're doing banking and stuff, even though you're not playing that game, you don't know who wrote that, and it could be logging all your keystrokes when that browser is open. Infected websites can do this too, get you to install something. Pirated and free software is probably the most dangerous thing, because that's stuff you go out there and look for, and then you install, and you don't know that it's got this malicious payload in it. You just think, hey, Photoshop's expensive, and here's my copy of it. I can now do what I want to do, and I don't have to pay, was it $20 a month anymore? I guess you can't get around that now, but you can install any kind of software like that, and it's that's how the pirates make their money. They're not providing the software because they're just, out of the goodness of their hearts, they know that there's people that can't afford software, and they just think that software should be free. It's not even close. They have modified those executables so when you run the software, it's doing either logging your keystrokes, logging your banking information, stealing, or whatever, trying to reinfect other machines and spread the worms around. So there's a lot of things, like you see, there's a lot of things you do that are insecure. USB flash drive is another one that people don't think about. I have a machine that has a virus on it, and I put a USB flash drive or SD card in my laptop, and then that virus gets on there, and then I give it to you. I don't know it's got a virus on it. I just want you to have this, these pictures of the family vacation. I'm trying to show them to you. I brought the flash drive. We're looking at them on your computer. Well, now your computer's infected. So you always want to scan it with the antivirus software when you connect it. Only use the ones you've purchased, and never use one you've found, because you have no idea what's on it, and they're cheap. They're so cheap. It's not worth picking one up off the ground in a parking lot and putting it in your laptop and risking infection, even if it's a terabyte. It's not worth it. Public USB charging stations. The main key with USB stuff is that anything that connects to USB on your phone or computer can read or write to your device. You're giving it that permission as soon as you plug it in. It's an external hard drive, essentially, or if your phone can transfer data with that charging cable. We've all done that, plugged our phones into the computer to move MP3s or something over onto the phone, or pull pictures off. So that you can transfer data when you want to. What you don't know is that hackers can do that when you don't want them to. They target public charging stations with viruses that give them access to the phone contents. A lot of times these free charging stations, they tell you, you just leave your phone. Just leave your phone. It's going to take an hour to charge. Go, especially at like a conference, you're at a convention center and they got the charging station. They're probably safe, but when you walk away from your phone, what do you know about what's going on with that phone? Anybody can pick that phone up and they can do whatever they want to it. So what can you do? Well, the first thing you can do is get a backup solution. Backup solution will help you tremendously with your home computer and your web server. We're going to get more deep into these as well here in a minute. So you guard your personal information. Use but never reuse a strong password. FTP over TLS or SFTP connections only to your web server. HTTPS lock. Make sure you've got it before you submit any personal information on the internet. For your web server, you can use a web application firewall to help filter some of the attacks. Always use the latest software versions and keep them up to date. Use an antivirus, security software, or VPN, or all three. Never connect anything unknown to your USB port, and use a battery pack or plug into a power outlet when you need a charge. The battery packs are cheap. I think we got one that's I can charge my phone probably 8 times with it on one charge. It charges overnight, and my wife carries it in her purse. We bring it with us to market so we can charge things if we notice batteries running low on something. And we don't ever have to use a public charger, so we're never connecting anything to that USB port on our phones. So the backup solution. Website backups give important options if your site does become compromised. Lets you restore using, you lose minimal to zero data. So you can completely replace a compromised site in your existing environment with a backup copy. So let's say your server gets hacked and your website gets hacked, and you've got, they've defaced it, or they've changed the data, or they've just installed malicious JavaScripts on there for you. You figure it out. You can take your backup copy and completely overwrite your website. So you can delete everything that's on the server now, put up the backup, and no problem. You fully restored. You're completely clean now. I would still recommend having the hosting company go over the server and make sure that the server's not got any lingering compromise to it. But your website's been restored. You can also take that backup and move to a clean hosting environment using the backup. So you lose nothing. If the server's infected, you don't have to deal with it anymore. Just change your DNS point to a new web server and upload your backup, and now your website's up. Nobody knows. No problem. You can back up your system manually or automatically. How often you do it depends on how often the site content changes. And you want to be considering things like e-commerce transactions, user comments. If you're not the only one that contributes to your website, maybe you've got, like one of our clients has a site that is a blog site that's got multiple content contributors. So you've got 10 bloggers or more on there. They could be changing their content anytime. So you don't know for sure. So you want to change, if your content's changing out all day, hourly is probably a good time to do it. Daily, if it's just changing daily, or if it changes several times a day, but not, constantly, like people are constant, like Facebook changes constantly, weekly, if your content changes multiple times a week, but not daily, weekly is probably good. Or monthly, if it's mostly static and really never changes. You put the site up and it doesn't have, not going to change it. Then you take a monthly backup just to make sure you have a backup. You don't necessarily have to overwrite the old one, just making sure you have at least one copy. And then you can back up the site as you add content. So every time you add a content to the website, you can take a backup right when you're done. And now you know that you're not going to lose that post that you spent 8 hours on and going through Grammarly and looking up in the thesaurus to find new words to use and all the things that I have to do whenever I write content. You don't have to worry about losing that if you get hacked within an hour of doing it and your backup hasn't run yet. So backup as you add content is always a good thing. It's kind of like saving as you go when you're working on, working in Word or something, and you're typing away and you just hit save, Control S or Command S, depending on Mac or PC or whatever. Just do it often. Let's see, way ahead on these. Find the spot. Backup solutions. Yeah, went ahead. All right, so guard your personal information. This is really a lot about the phishing and social engineering. Anytime someone approaches you in any way, whether it's email, your phone, coming up to your house, asking for personal information, you have to make a determination about whether this is legitimate or if it's a scam. Your service provider, your bank, your internet, email, credit cards, they're never going to ask you for login information. They have access to all the information they need without having to log into your account. They can see it. So they're not going to ask you for that information. If they do ask you for that information, you know it's a scam. Now, like I was telling you earlier with the story I told about the guys that tried to get me, you can call into the bank and they're going to verify your information. They may ask for your social security number. They may ask you to verify your name and address. They may ask you for a PIN number, or they may ask you a security question. And that's legitimate for them to do that. But if somebody calls you and starts asking for that information, that's not legitimate. That'll never be legitimate. And even if it is legitimate, you feel free to hang up the phone, thank them for the call, hang up the phone, and then call the known number that you have. Don't confirm any information with somebody that calls you. Just don't. There's no reason to do it. I shouldn't have done it. And luckily I only have about $25 or $30 in that account. So, they're going through a lot of work to get that $30, but it wouldn't have got them very far. Contact the company they claim to represent using a known valid contact number. That is the one thing that I did try to do during that conversation. Now I'm in the dark, kind of outside, because I'm at my parents' house when this happened for Thanksgiving, and it's in the evening, so it's dusk, it's low light. I didn't have my readers on. Even though I'm only like 30, I still have to use readers sometimes because my contacts don't let me adjust to small text anymore. So I looked at the number on the credit card, and I looked at the number on the phone. They were shaped the same. So I almost continued. I did continue at first because of that. That was me verifying. It was roughly the same shape. It looked like they were the same number, but I didn't actually see the number to verify it. And they can spoof these numbers, so that makes it even more dangerous because they can make it look like the bank's calling even if the bank's not calling. If you've ever received a cell phone call from your phone number, you know how that spoofing can work. I advise everyone stay current on all your accounts to avoid collection agencies. I've had some collection agencies call me over the last 20 years. Even though I'm only 30, they call and they want to tell me about accounts that they're collecting for. And the problem is once an account goes to collections, it's public record. That means that I can find out that you owe somebody money, and I can call you and tell you I'm a collection agency. And I can tell you how much you owe and all that. And so it sounds very legitimate. It's too bad that that's the way the legal system works. But that's the way it works. It's public record and anyone can get a hold of it. So your best bet is to stay out of that kind of trouble. Just stay current on your accounts. Avoid the collection agencies altogether. If you do get a call from a collection agency or someone that claims to be from a collection agency, you don't have to deal with them just because they called. You tell them, I understand who you say you are. I understand I have this bill, and that's fine. I get that. But in order to protect my identity, in order to protect my credit, in order to protect myself, I'm hanging up the phone. I'm going to call the company that I owe the money to. I'm going to call them and make sure this is legitimate before I deal with you and see if I can get a number from them to call to get to have a conversation with you. But I'm not going to talk to you until I've verified for sure this is legitimate. And they should understand. Some collection agencies are nasty. I've talked to a few of them. And that's all you can do. They can't make you talk to them. So take care of that. Figure out, get your bills paid and don't worry about it. Or if you do, then call the company and make sure that that's a legitimate collection agency and get a legitimate contact. Also, use all the privacy options that are available to lock down all your social media accounts. You see these things all the time on Facebook. What was your first pet's name? What was the first kind of car you drove? If you grew up in College Park, Maryland, what was your street address? or stuff like that, or what street name that you grew up on. All that stuff is phishing. It's all trying to get you to give information that is common to the security questions that you might have answered to recover your password. So it's fun to do the 10-year challenge, but your 10-year challenge where you post your picture from 10 years ago and your picture today, you're feeding the facial recognition software. It's all these things. I know it sounds like tinfoil hat stuff, but it's all stuff that can be used to gain access to your account. The more information you put out on social media to people that don't know you, the more information they have to hack into your account. So you want to be making sure things like Facebook, you've got it locked down so only your friends can see it. Don't accept friend requests from people that you don't know and that sort of thing. I'll have a slide for this. This is all just stuff that I should have put it in the slide probably, but lock down your Facebook. You probably don't need to be friends with everybody on Facebook. Having 3,000 friends is probably not safe. If you're a teenager, it's going to make you feel good, but you don't know who they are. You don't know what they want. And if they with Facebook, they can get your phone number. If you've put it in there, they can get your address, or not your address, but they can get your town that you live in. They can get your family members. They can see who all your friends are. You'll hear people say, "Hey, I got an extra friend request from you on Facebook. You should check your password." The way that works is really what happens is they will find your account. Even if you lock down your privacy stuff, your name and your profile picture it's like public record. You can't make it private, so anyone can see it. They can click that picture, save that, and then they look at your Facebook profile and they have all the information they need to duplicate your account, to make an account that looks just like yours. And then they look at your friends list, they block you, and they add all your friends. So now they're trying to impersonate you so that they can get information. And that's what's happening when your friends get hacked and you get that second Facebook friend request. It's not that they've been hacked, it's that they've duplicated an account. Anybody can do that. It's not a hack. It's just it's social engineering. So let's see what we got. So guard your personal information. Secure your passwords. Never use the same password twice. Change your password regularly. Use a minimum of 50 characters in all your passwords, or as many as the service will allow. I use a minimum of 50. Sometimes I'll go high. It really depends on what the account is. If it's like a bank account, I'll never use less than 50 unless my bank won't let me use more than, say, 25 or 14 or whatever, and then I do what I can do. But some of them won't let you go over like 12 or 15 or 25. If you can use 50, use 50. If you can use 100, use 100. Because when they're generating those passwords for the brute force attacks and stuff, they're not trying to guess a 100-character password. They're guessing like 15 character, 8 character and stuff. And it'd take them, I don't know, like 100 years or something to crack your password at 100 characters for it to guess it just on a random. And so you're automatically safer. If you can remember your password, then somebody else can probably hack it. And if you can remember it, that means you're probably using it more than one place. I've got too many accounts to remember passwords to have passwords I can remember. So I use a password manager like LastPass or KeyPass or 1Password. We use LastPass at Pongos. One of the cool things about LastPass with Pongos is that we have a team account. So if I have an account that I need to share with one of the other team members, I don't have to give it to them in our Slack channel or through an email. I can share it with them in LastPass, which basically is giving them access to it so that when they go to the website or whatever it is that they need that password for, they can go and find that password within their LastPass account, and it's being shared encrypted and safely, so nobody else can see it. So don't share your password. If you do need to share a password, you can do it through LastPass or something like that. If you share a password, I recommend you change it soon as that person doesn't need the password anymore. And I'm talking about stuff like, your web developer or that sort of thing. You don't want to share like your Netflix password with your friends so that they don't have to pay for Netflix. For one, it's piracy, but two, that password is now 2 people know the password, then 3 people know the password, and it gets dangerous, especially if you're reusing passwords. Now you've given that password to somebody, and it may be a really cool password that you thought really long and hard. I remember being in college, and I had a password that was so cool. I don't remember what it was now, but it was very clever and creative, and it was so clever and creative that it was hard not to tell people, hey, this is, because it's kind of funny and neat. So don't do that either. Use two-factor authentication whenever possible. Two-factor authentication is basically your password is something you know. The second factor is something you have. And then with 3-factor, you have something that you are. So you can do either something you have or something you are. That's like your fingerprint. Like my Mac, I can unlock it with my fingerprint, which is pretty cool. Unless someone cuts off my finger and decides they're going to unlock my Mac. So I don't generally advertise. Of course, now I guess I have since we're broadcasting that you could cut my finger off and have access to my Mac. But there's really nothing good on my Mac anyway, so I guess I'm probably safe. But you can use, so two-factor authentication. The second factor is usually going to be a text. So they'll text you a code onto your cell phone, and then you'll type in that code in so you log in with your username and password, and then it sends you the text, and then there'll be a box you can type in the code, and then once that's verified, now it gives you access. We used to have, when I was in network operations, we had Secure ID, and it generates a token, a 6 to 8 character token that we would have to log in with. So I would type my username, and then I would type in that token. It's kind of the same thing as that. You can use Google Authenticator. Microsoft has an authenticator. And basically what that does is it's on your phone, and then you can go and look at it. It's constantly generating those tokens. So you log in with your username and password, then you look at your phone to see what the code is on your token, and then you type that token in, and it validates you. So that way, even if someone does finally figure out your password, they don't have your cell phone, they still can't get access. So that's additional protection. I recommend that for banks. I recommend that for everything. I have it on my Fortnite account there because I'm only 30, so it's okay to play Fortnite stuff. But it's good for everything. Anything that you use that there's money transactions should have two-factor authentication enabled if possible, and use it wherever you can. You can store lots of tokens on or lots of accounts on Google Authenticator. You may have to scroll through a few to get down to it. I probably got like 15 or 20 of them I had to scroll through, but it protects the accounts that we have, like our hosting account for Pongos. I log in, and nobody else can log in. It's the one negative about it, but I can log in and I can use the two-factor authentication to make sure that nobody else can get access to our servers, because you have to log into those servers through my IP address, or you can log into our hosting company with the two-factor authentication and open up the firewall to allow another IP address in. So that's pretty well locked down. Let's see. FTP over TLS or SFTP. That's the TLS is transport layer security. When you connect to your server to upload your web files, you want to make an update on the website, whether it's a CMS like WordPress or just your standard HTML uploads. Whenever you connect to that computer, that server to upload, you want to do it the safest way you can. FTP clients log you in using unencrypted plain text. That means that they can get your password if they're snooping, and they can grab your plain text files you're uploading as well. So 2 standard methods that are safe to use. Some hosts provide one or the other, some provide both. Most of them you'll be able to use SFTP. FTP over TLS often is FTPS. You'll see it listed as too, and SFTP. You can log in with those, and basically it's encrypting your connection. So you're logging in, you submit when you send your username and password. That information's then encrypted, so no one can intercept it. And you're uploading your file as well. FileZilla works on pretty much everything. I recommend it if you're going to connect to your web server to upload files. Use FileZilla or something similar. There's plenty of paid alternatives you can use as well, but you want to make sure it has SFTP or FTP over TLS. One of the cool things about the FTP over TLS is you can do a SSH key, so you can add an extra layer of security. If someone doesn't have that key file, they can't log in. It's kind of like another, like two-factor authentication, sort of. The HTTPS lock, you want to make sure you've got that solid lock at the top of the browser before you even type in a web form. If you type in the web form, you guys have probably seen this, especially on like a Google search. You start to type in, and it starts to offer suggestions of what you may actually be searching for. That means that that information is going to the web server. The web server is getting it whether you hit search or submit or not. So if you start typing your personal information into a web form that doesn't have the HTTPS lock, you could be sending that information to the web server unencrypted, and then they have it. So you type in your social security number, for example, they have your social security number now. You didn't submit it, but it went to the server. The lock means your data will be encrypted. The lock does not mean the site is legitimate. You can get a free SSL certificate for your website. It doesn't matter what the URL is. It doesn't mean you're saying that you're anything. It just means that you're saying, hey, this is a server that is using a certificate to encrypt. So it's excuse me, it's encrypted on both ends, which helps protect you from having your data intercepted. So I can set up a website that looks like your bank and does have the lock. So you also have to check the URL before you submit any information, but generally you're not going to see a lot of that. But that is part of the phishing, where they'll send you an email and then they give you a link. You click the link, go to the website. It looks just like Bank of America, and you log in and you've given them your username and password, and it'll redirect you to the actual Bank of America password so that you can log back in again. It'll just say that your password wasn't correct, and then you're logging in and you log into your actual bank. So they get the thing. You think you just type out your password and you move on with your day. They move on with your money. So you want to make sure of those things. A web application firewall. The web application firewall applies a set of rules. Basically, it gets between the user and the website, and it prevents it from being able to. It prevents a user from being able to send a malicious attack to the server for the most part. It doesn't block everything, but it does block the ones it knows about, like cross-site forgery, which forces the user to log in. Like if you're already logged in, and I can get you to click a link. That link may force something to happen on your website because you're logged in, and I'm using that that cookie that your site knows you're logged in, and so it knows you have the authority to do the thing that the link is suggesting that you do, and you don't even realize that you've done it. Cross-site scripting is malicious JavaScript executed within a legitimate script. SQL injection is you'll see a URL and they'll have like a semicolon and then a MySQL command in there, and what it tries to do is it puts a semicolon there so that it forces the end of a command and drops this other command in, and so it executes that command into your database. They can use that to add an account for themselves to log into your CMS. Or distributed denial of service attack. That's the one that's probably the most popular. You guys probably remember the Smurf attacks and things like that used to happen back in the days of dial-up, when you get kicked offline because somebody just hit you with 1,000 ping attacks or whatever. Let's see. So some web application firewalls are provided by the host provider, others are external. Depending on your host, like Armor Anywhere is the bottom. That one is, Armor has a web application firewall that they provide if you're using them as hosting, but they also have this product called Armor Anywhere, which essentially is a web application firewall. Amazon Web Services has one. Security is the one I recommend for WordPress. Cloudflare has one you can use for free, and the free one's pretty good for the most part. And then what you do is you get your account with these companies, and then you put your DNS on their hosting so that they can change the IP of your web server. Basically, it's a so when I go to your website, I'm actually hitting Cloudflare, and then Cloudflare is putting me onto your website. Sometimes they will serve a cached copy of your website, which saves traffic on your web server, and they block malicious stuff. You can look on Cloudflare for sure. You can look and it'll show you a graph of all the things that how many attacks they blocked and what kind of attacks they blocked, or how many cached pages they served versus what they allowed to pass through to your web server. It's kind of neat. And you can do those things for the Cloudflare. It has a free one. Security is a monthly one, and it's WordPress. The cool thing with Security is that they're constantly scanning and watching for attacks. So when they start to see traffic coming in their application firewall that looks malicious, and they're seeing it hitting multiple different sites, they start to investigate that traffic and see what that traffic's actually trying to do. And then if they figure out that it's an exploit, they will let the developers know about the exploit. But not only do they do that, they start to block that attack on their own, so that even if it takes the developer a month or a year to get that fixed, Security is blocking it automatically because they found it, and so they're preventing it from affecting your website. Amazon Web Services has one. If you've got AWS already, it's a good idea to add their application firewall, or you can add Security or Cloudflare or Armor Anywhere as well. Just because they don't have to be part of your hosting environment to do it. It's just kind of a filter, I guess, that the traffic goes through. Let's see, latest software versions. This rule applies to both your home and work computer. You want to keep your software updated, latest versions. We've kind of talked about this before. You want to get all the security patches as they come out. The only exception is with major software releases. They usually have, it's not always just bug fixes. A lot of times it's new features. Well, new features are great, but you don't have to get the new features. You need the security stuff. And so as they come out with a release, like for example, major releases or version like 2.x, version 2 is a new release. 2.2 or 2.1, those are minor releases. Those are patches. WordPress, it looks like 5.3 is the latest release, and then they just did a minor release with security and feature fixes that are, it says 5.3.1. So the .1, a lot of times I will recommend WordPress users, for example, to hang on before you update to the latest feature release, which is 5.3. Wait till they get that 5.3.1, because new features means new bugs. Give them a couple weeks to get the bug reports, and then fix those things and give you a release that's a little more stable for your production site. Let's see, antivirus. You need antivirus program on your computer. Windows Defender. Windows comes with it. It's free, and it works really well. I've read a lot of stuff about companies that security minded that recommend just, Windows Defender is great on its own, because it knows the operating system, and who better to know when something's not right with the operating system than the company that built the operating system. So you can use Windows Defender, and it comes highly recommended. And usually you don't recommend a Microsoft product, but in this case, it's actually really good. Bitdefender is also great. For your Mac, yes, Macs do get viruses. They do need this stuff. Bitdefender, still great. And Sophos is also great. Security software, you need it on your phone. And that's where the security software is a little bit different from the antivirus. It usually includes antivirus. Bitdefender is great for your Android. It's great for your iPhone. Lookout Security and Antivirus is what I use on my Android. Now, antivirus stuff doesn't really work on iOS because iOS for your iPhone, it sandboxes apps. So it doesn't allow apps to have the permissions to do the things that viruses like to do. So your iPhone is more secure in that way. But there are some things that you can install that even get through or get through the Apple filters that can be malware on your iPhone. So you still have to be careful about the software you install. But the antivirus doesn't work because it can't get the permissions it needs to actually clean the phone. Let's see. WordPress security and plugins. Since we mostly deal with WordPress, I recommend Security. I recommend anti-malware security and brute force firewall. It's GOTMLS is what it is listed as on the WordPress plugin repository. WP Security Audit Log is really great because it keeps up with what everybody's doing on the website, all changes that come through, plugins installed, uninstalled, activated, deactivated, posts being made, passwords being changed, all that stuff it keeps up with. So you can kind of see what's going on anytime something looks weird, or whether it looks weird or not, you can go look and see what users are doing. The Cloudflare Web Application Firewall is good, and iTheme Security plugin is good. VPN. VPNs basically let you encrypt your traffic from end to end. So it sits in the middle. It's kind of like your own internet provider. You put the VPN software on your computer, it encrypts that to the VPN provider, and then from the VPN provider, it goes to the site that you're wanting to get to. This is great for when you're using that coffee shop Wi-Fi. You get the VPN connection, and now even though you're all using the same encryption initially, or same unencryption anyway, or non-encryption, you are encrypting your data so that people on the at the coffee shop can't see what you're doing because you're encrypted additionally. And we recommend ExpressVPN, IPVanish, and Bitdefender apparently has VPN capabilities as well. So you can get the Bitdefender. It's not a free one, but you can get it, and you get your antivirus, your security, and the VPN all in one shot. So to recap, you got to implement a backup solution for both your computers at home and your web server. Guard your personal information. Be extremely vigilant about that. Be very paranoid when people start asking you questions, especially people you don't know. It's kind of like the stranger danger we tell our kids. Don't talk to strangers. You don't know what they want. Don't take their candy. Don't get in their van. FTP over TLS or SFTP connections only when updating your website. Make sure you have the HTTPS lock. Get your web application firewall. Always use the latest software versions. Use an antivirus, a security, and a VPN. Never connect anything unknown to USB on any device you have. Use your own battery packs or plug into power outlet to charge. So, plug your USB into the little block that it comes with, plug that into a power outlet, and you can use the free public charging that way because it's just the electricity. So here's some internet safety and security resources that I've got, and I think Chrissy's I've got the slides are on speaker deck, and Chrissy will probably put the link to that. But WeLiveSecurity.com is a really great site for security information. InfoSec Institute is another really great one. Tech Republic's got a lot of good security articles. Blog.security.net. A security plug, they post a lot of security-related articles for Joomla, Magento, and WordPress. They focus mostly on WordPress, but they do touch on those other ones. And it's a lot of really good stuff about things like we were talking about today. StaySafeOnline.org is another good one. USCert.gov is the government cybersecurity site. Bark.us is a company that does, it's really great if you've got kids with cell phones. You can put Bark on their phone, and Bark will help monitor. It helps you to monitor the things that they're doing online. But they have a blog where they post about the things the dangers that are out there, software that your kids are using, like Snapchat and Instagram, and the dangers that are involved in those things. Give you some things to watch out for. Guardian is the one that we use on our kids' phones, and it's the same kind of thing. It helps you you can locate the phone, which means you know where that kid is. So if they say, hey, I'm going to Susie's house, and that phone's not at Susie's house, you can call it. You can see it's not at Susie's house, and then you can call it. And if they don't answer it, well, you know that everybody's not where they're supposed to be, So you can kind of keep an eye on that. You can keep an eye on who's messaging your kid. You can lock down apps. My wife loves, and I mean loves, when we're showing this off to friends of ours that, like, we'll be at a party or whatever, and like a kid's birthday party, and my wife will see my daughter sitting over on a chair with her phone, and she will shut down her phone, basically lock it down. The screen goes where she can't do anything, and she looks up. She's like, and it's funny, that being able to have that kind of control. It means you can do controls like setting time limits and stuff like that, so you know that your kids are not playing video games when they need to be doing other things, but they still have access to call you if there's a problem. So I recommend both of those as far as the blogs. You can decide whether or not you want to monitor your kids online or not. I remember things have changed a lot. They used to tell us that you need to have the computer out in the living room, and everybody should be able to see what everybody's doing on that computer when they're on the internet. I still believe that's the case. A lot of people don't. You'd be surprised. I'm shocked all the time at parents that I know whose kids are doing things online that I know they shouldn't be doing. We all know that their kids are doing it. They refuse to believe their kids are doing it, or you hear my kid's an honor roll student, so I don't have any reason to take this away from her or to lock it down. Meanwhile, they're texting naked pictures to other boys at the middle school or whatever. It's like you have to lock things down. You have to protect them from themselves sometimes. But anyway, Bark US and Guardian, I highly recommend them. The blogs, at least, so you know what's going on. If they don't scare you into buying the product, I don't know what will. Let's see. Security scans. HaveIBeenOwned.com. It's owned with a P. Pwned. It's a hacker slang. You can check your email addresses and passwords to see if they've been involved in a breach. It's one of the cool things about this site is if you own the domain, you can they'll email you if any email address in your domain has been involved in a breach. So I get emails whenever Pongos email addresses are involved in a breach, and then I have to go and figure out which one it was. Where you can download it in a spreadsheet and stuff like that. You can check your password, see if you have a password you've been using. You can type that password in and see if it's been involved in a breach. And if it has, it'll tell you, and then I got to go change that password. It doesn't matter if it's one that you use, if it's been involved in, your account has been the one that was involved in the breach or not. If you use a password that someone else has used in a breach, that means it's in the dictionary attack. Somebody else is going to use it to try attack somebody's account, and it may be yours. And if yours, if your password's in that list, good chance you're going to get hit. Unmasked Parasites is a good one to scan your website. Sitecheck.security.net is another one. Katera is great for telling you if there's any kind of malware or anything in your website. All those three will tell you those things. It's good to try with multiple ones to see once in a while, because some things will catch things that others miss. Mageport.com, that is for Magento storage. I don't know if any of you have that, but Magento has a lot of breaches over the last couple of years, and it's good to be able to know if you're up to date or not. Let's see. Now we're at the questions. So I guess if any of you have any questions, I will do my best to attempt to answer.
Anybody have a question?
No, you've terrified me. I took some screenshots of things, but now I'm sitting here like
Changing all your
know that,
passwords?
okay? But you got me in this 50 character password.
Right.
I have 3
Right.
passwords. I just changed the order of them.
Try using a sentence.
Yeah, well, with the 50-character passwords, you use something like LastPass. You don't have to remember the password; it stores it for you.
Yeah.
And LastPass gives you, so your passwords are stored; they're encrypted, and so you when you go to the website, it auto fills it in for you. So you can go to the website. It's like you have LastPass on your browser. So like it's an extension you can put on like Chrome or Firefox. I think Safari
I have
as
to
well.
put that on because I have a little rolling sheet where I started writing them down, but I couldn't remember the Apple password to change it, and it took almost 2 months for them to let me change it.
Oh,
when
wow.
I put in, I was like, "This is ridiculous."
Wow.
So now I start writing things down.
Yeah, you don't want to write things down because
I
if you
know.
write things down
'Cause then
and
they can
someone
open
gets
this
that,
up
they
and
have
Yeah,
have
everything.
somebody can find that.
passwords.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can have a
use
password
I
you can
started being
remember
organized.
for LastPass, and it encrypts all your passwords, and then you can just store all your passwords, and you can get access to those 50 to 100 character passwords, and not have to worry about remembering. You just have to remember the password that you use for logging into
LastPass.
LastPass.
Yeah. You need to remember your LastPass password.
Right, and you can do two-factor authentication on LastPass. So that means that someone has to have your phone. Like I have the LastPass app on my phone, and it requires my fingerprint in order to open. So even if you get my phone, you still can't have my passwords because you don't have my fingerprint. So
That was cool. Thank you.
Do you have any?
Do you have any recommendations on more browsers that have more privacy than Chrome, like maybe Brave, or was there SlimJet as a new one or something?
right now, Firefox is really serious about your privacy, and if you combine Firefox with using the DuckDuckGo search engine, is probably about the most private you can get. Chrome is going to track you. It's just built to do it. Everything Google does is built to track you. So, like I use Chrome for my Pongos email because we use Gmail anyway, and I know that the stuff that I'm trying to do with that is going to work fine in Chrome for all of our company apps and stuff. Google Sheets and Docs and all that. So I use it for that. And I have to use Chrome because we're in web development, so we're
Right.
going to be looking at sites and make sure they work in Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. But as far as your personal browsing, I highly recommend Firefox. Firefox will help you monitor for breaches as well. They've got some new stuff that they're doing. They really have become very serious about privacy, and more so than probably anyone else.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been
Safari is
using-
an Apple product, and I believe it's also got tracking stuff in it. Microsoft is moving Edge into a Chrome-based browser, so it's going to be just Chrome with the Microsoft skin, basically, probably. And yeah, Firefox is probably the way to go.
Okay. One more question. Privacy with email. Do you is Proton any good?
As a mail,
Proton, yeah, for a mail client. Mail.
I honestly don't know a lot about the email clients anymore. I know I read something this morning about Outlook is putting ads in the Outlook that you can't turn off.
Right.
I generally, if you're looking for privacy, that's probably a good one. If they're advertising privacy, then it's probably fine. I couldn't say for sure. Firefox used to have, and they may still have, a mail client, but I'm not positive, so I can't really answer definitively about it.
Okay.
But if you can get something from Mozilla, that'll probably be good. But yeah, anybody that's advertising as private, I guess you could check maybe like Tom's Guide or TechCrunch or one of those kind of websites and see if they, you search for top 10 private email or email privacy clients or something would probably help.
Just Google it, right?
Yeah, use DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, I did have one more question, Dave. When you talk about free public Wi-Fi, if there's like a pizza place that's closed and there's no one else around and you're using your free public Wi-Fi there, and the owners seem reliable, is it pretty secure for a short period of time?
How do you know no one's around?
Park outside. Hey, park outside and get,
I mean,
get a signal. I mean,
it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to check your bank balance, I would go home.
Yeah.
She's trying to avoid getting internet at her house in Florida.
If you're trying to avoid getting internet at your house, then I recommend getting an unlimited cellular plan.
I have it.
With a reputable company, and then staying off the Wi-Fi completely. Because at least the cell plan, you can't see the other cell users. You're submitting your data as encrypted, I believe, automatically through the cell tower, kind of like as VPN sort of thing.
Right.
May not be 100% accurate on that, but you're not likely to be intercepted until it hits the internet. Once it hits the internet, anything can be intercepted,
right.
but it's not likely. I mean, you have to be sitting right on the network sniffing for that sort of thing. It's a lot harder to do it with your cell signal. So if you're using, Verizon or AT&T or whatever, and you're out and you've got a strong enough signal for 4G or even 3, then I would just use that rather than the Wi-Fi, just because it's going to be more secure in general.
Every once in a while, I have something on that I need to send from the laptop, so I'll just run down, park outside at night at the pizza joint.
Right. The other thing you can do at the pizza joint, you don't have to wait till everybody's gone. You can just install the VPN.
Maybe I'll do that with the Bitdefender.
Yeah.
I may go with
Yeah,
that.
if you've got the VPN, then you're much safer.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
No, that was great. Thank you.
It was
thank you, Dave.
fantastic.
Sorry about the fire hose.
Scary guy.
Scaring everybody. All right, thank you, Dave. I'm going to turn off the live stream now, but thank you very much for your in-depth presentation and scaring everybody here.
That was really good.
But you know what? They're going to change their passwords to those long
I'm
passwords.
gonna go get this thing
And use LastPass.
I'm gonna use LastPass.
Yeah.
Just because you scared me doesn't mean it wasn't good.
Dave is always posting like warnings in our. We have a work Slack, like a chat that we all are in, and he's always posting like, "Hey, update your browser," or "We got to update WordPress," and he's always posting that kind of stuff. He's very good at scaring us every so often. Update your browser.
Yeah, I would, except I don't have my laptop with me.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're using unsecured Wi-Fi anyway, so.
Yeah. So it's all
Right,
good.
she's gonna be at the outside the pizza place anyway.
Yeah, we have free Wi-Fi
Right.
here.
There you go.
Yeah. But it does have, we do have a firewall, and we have a few other things with it. So, the firewall is good for protecting the people on the Wi-Fi from downloading bad stuff. But
Right.
Since there's a room full of kids here,
Yeah.
that's good.
yeah, the firewall has stopped, and we get a report every month from the company that does it for us of the stuff that was blocked.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, so the kids try. But the other cool thing is we can turn off YouTube, and we can turn off certain things. So we do YouTube stars here, so we can't just leave it off all the time, because otherwise we can't do our YouTube stars class. But if the kids are being a problem and they're they're going to YouTube and we keep telling them to stop and they won't, we can just turn YouTube off on the network. So So that's nice.
That reminds me, there's one other thing you can do to help with your security. There's a company called OpenDNS, and if you go to their site, you can get an account. It's free, and you can set your computer's DNS or your network's DNS. You can do it right at your router if you know how to do it. They'll guide you to doing a lot of this stuff, but you can set your DNS to OpenDNS, and that will automatically block, like pornography sites. It'll block hacking sites. So I can't use it because I can't get to the sites I need to get the information I need to build something like this presentation. I have to turn it off for that because it won't let me get to some of these sites to talk about hacking. But you can block all kinds of stuff, which is great because some of these things where a domain that looks similar to Google, for example, and they're loading a JavaScript from goog.le/whatever, the OpenDNS won't resolve that because they know it's fake. So it prevents some of those phishing and some of those malicious attacks automatically. So it keeps you kind of off of some of the dangerous sites that way.
Cool.
Now, did you say Bitdefender also for the iPhone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Bitdefender for the iPhone.
okay.
Yeah, it's not going to do the antivirus so much as
Right,
it's
I
going to
caught
do
that, yeah.
phishing and some of the other stuff it blocks, and it'll scan your phone for malware and give you the VPN.
Okay. It's been a big help, Dave.
Yep. Thank you, Dave.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Say
right.
hi to
All right.
Thank
family.
you.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye everybody.